Hey guys, welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and every once in a while I throw in other whiskey related content. Today we're doing a list. I'm going to be going over my top 5 18-year-old whiskeys for 2023. Stick around. Alright, so we're doing top 5 18-year-old whiskeys for 2023, and right out the gate, this is a list of 18-year-old whiskeys, so we're not in budget territory. These are not going to be affordable whiskeys, and I actually didn't bother factoring in value. Now, some of these are good bang for buck whiskeys, but oppositely, plenty aren't. So yeah, we're just tackling flavor and quality today. We're going to forget about the price tag. Of course, I haven't tried every 18-year-old whiskey out there, so I'm limited by what I've actually tried and what I've got here on the shelf. Of course, this is all opinion. It's where I'm at in 2023. I might come back to this list at some point down the line and do some rearranging, but this is where we are right now. None of these whiskeys are going to be IBs, independent bottles, or anything that's particularly hard to find. So we're not dealing with anything too obscure here. All of these are OBs or original bottlings from big brands. So they should be pretty widely available. Of course, that will depend on you and your market. And there we have it, top 5 18-year-olds for 2023. This is going to be a fun one. As usual, guys, I do have a mystery pour in my glass here. It's an exceptional whiskey. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video and I'll share with you what that is. And I suppose that's it. Let's jump into our list. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So before we jump into the proper list, I do want to give out a couple honorable mentions. Those are Aaron 18 and Enoch 18. Both of these are fantastic whiskeys. They're not too expensive. I know I'm not going to focus too much on budget today, and we're just looking at flavor and profile and all that, but if you do want something more affordable, these are good choices. For 18-year-olds, they're not too expensive. They're great if you're in the mood for something sherried. Really good choices, highly recommended. So Enoch 18, Aaron 18, honorable mentions. So at number 5, we're kicking things off with a whiskey that I've only recently learned is not very consistent, and that's the Bonhaven 18. Not too long ago, a very big name YouTuber stirred up a bit of controversy because he said that the newer batches of Bonhaven 18 were much weaker, not nearly as good as they used to be, and he got a lot of kickback for that. I'm not going to name names, but rhymes with Balfi. Don't bother guessing, you'll never get it. But yeah, he put out a video saying that newer batches of Bonhaven 18 had gone downhill. Now, when I watched that video, I just finished a bottle of Bonhaven 18, and that was a bottle that I had found to be fantastic. So I was kind of dubious. But then I bought a newer bottle, and he was right, it wasn't as good. That was a bottle I'd split with friends, and we were all kind of disappointed because we knew how great Bonhaven 18 could be, and that bottle was a little bit flat. It wasn't very vibrant. A lot of the flavors just didn't give us the same level of complexity. Not a bad whiskey, but just not where it used to be. So we finished that bottle, and for science, we bought another one just because we were curious. We wanted to see if that was going to consistently be a problem with Bona 18. And the more recent bottle that we got was good again. It was much better. So it seems like batch variation is something to be aware of with Bonhaven 18. Still, at the end of the day, when Bona 18 is at its best, it's an exceptional whiskey, and it's still one of my favorite OB 18-year-old releases. But because we did have that one bad experience, this is lower on the list than I might normally want to put it. Still great stuff though, and it's still worth checking out if you can. So Bonhaven 18, number 5. Next up at number 4, we've got a whiskey that I reviewed very recently on the channel, and I absolutely loved it. This is the Bonhaven 18. Not the standard release of the Bonhaven 18 that comes in a clear bottle. This one is the travel retail exclusive. It comes in a black bottle, and this one's at 46%. Absolutely beautiful stuff. We've got all the hallmarks of a great Highland Park whiskey in this one. We have the heathery peat. We have a beautiful sherry touch. It's very malty. We got great barley flavors in here. The extra ABV does make the whiskey more substantial, and our 18 years in the casks have given it some nice refinement, some nice complexity. Now, in my opinion, this one should replace the standard 18-year-old at 43%. We pay good money for 18-year-old whiskeys, and it'd be nice to get the specs that we want and the ABV that we want. Not a cheap whiskey. And the thing is, if we just go off of like flavor and enjoyment, this is one of my favorite 18-year-old whiskeys, but it's not recommended if you're on a tight budget. If you don't mind footing the bill and you're an HB fanboy like I am, then it is worth checking out though. It is exceptional stuff, so it comes in at number 4, Highland Park 18 at 46%. Next up at number 3, we've got what's probably the least predictable whiskey on this list, and that's the Longhorn 18. Now this one I feel like is overlooked by a lot of people in the whiskey community. This does not get the fanfare it deserves. it's spectacular. What's nice about this one is that it's not a sherry dominated whiskey. I think there is a sherry touch to it, but it doesn't dominate the profile, it doesn't dominate the character. What we do have is classic Longhorn house style flavors in here. We get stuff like grassy notes, herbal notes. It's a very characterful whiskey. And what's nice about this stuff is that it actually seems to be getting better. I've had quite a few bottles of Longhorn 18 and I've always loved it. But the older bottles were a little bit lighter and not quite as consistent, whereas the newer batches seem to be more robust and more full flavored. So obviously that's a good thing. As far as price is concerned, I don't think this is an overly expensive 18-year-old. Of course, we're talking about 18-year-old whiskeys. They're not going to be cheap, but in the context of being an 18-year-old whiskey, I think it's very fairly priced. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about budget and not factor in value, but I guess it's hard to make that disassociation. Regardless, really good whiskey. And again, this is one that I feel like not enough people are talking about. So it's one worth checking out if you haven't tried it. Comes in at number 3, Longhorn 18. All right, so my choice for number 2 is probably going to piss a lot of people off, and that's because it's Talisker 18. Now, Talisker 18 very famously shot up in price 1 or 2 years back now, and of course, a lot of people got very angry about that. Rightfully so. It is now entirely too expensive. And this whiskey is the reason I said we're not factoring in budgets today. It wouldn't be here if we did, but just going off of flavor, it's beautiful. This stuff is refined, it's nuanced, it's elegant, it's classy. I always refer to it as a very gentlemanly whiskey because I'm pretentious, but this is Talisker at their best. It's a very sophisticated, very delicious whiskey. Now, for the record, I haven't tried the newer label Talisker 18, which looks like that. I've only had the older one. When they switched labels with the 10-year-old and they gave it the new label, they did change the formula a little bit. And despite what I said in previous videos, the newer 10 is not as good as the older 10. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case with the 18-year-old. I don't know if it's gone downhill, if it's the same stuff. Maybe if you've tried the newer ones, you can let me know down below in the comments. But yeah, the older label, 18-year-old Talisker, gorgeous whiskey, very expensive, overpriced, yes, wonderful stuff, comes in at number 2. So my choice for number 1 on this list is going to be very predictable. It might surprise about 3 of you out there watching. It's Ledaig 18, because of course it is. This couldn't be anything else. This had to be my number 1. As far as I'm concerned, it is the best 18-year-old out there today. Not only does it deliver in terms of flavor and quality, it also gives us a fair price tag. This is one of the more affordable 18-year-olds on the market, so it just checks every box. This stuff gives us big peat, big sherry, complexity, bold flavors. It's got that classic Ledaig funk that for me goes a little bit lactic. A lot of people call it cheesy, but it adds a lot of character to the whiskey. And you know, predictable maybe, but this had to be my number 1. There was no getting around it. So there we go. Top spot, Ledaig 18. Okay, that's the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep in mind, it's all just opinion. And of course, I want to hear yours. What are your top 5 go-to 18-year-old whiskeys? Also, are there any 18-year-olds out there that you feel are not being talked about or not being celebrated enough? Let me know what those are down below. And finally, for those of you who stuck around to find out what my mystery pour is in the glass here, this is a whiskey that, I'll be honest, was not in consideration for this list because I don't think it's one of the best 18-year-olds out there, but it is a very good 18-year-old, and I wanted to include it because there were so many expensive whiskeys that I just named off, and I wanted to give you a great bang for buck option. And that whiskey is Loch Lomond 18. Now hopefully this makes up for the fact that I just suggested Highland Park 18, Talisker 18, Bonhaven 18, all of which are very expensive. Loch Lomond 18 is characterful, it's interesting, it's a good whiskey, and it's easily the cheapest whiskey on this list. So I did want to put, like I said, a bang for buck alternative out there for you guys. Great stuff, worth checking out. And I guess that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any ideas for whiskeys that you want to see reviewed on the channel or lists that you want to see done, you can let me know down below in the comments. I'll be sure to read those. And I guess we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.